Hi, tech community. Welcome to lucky number episode number 14 of AWS She Builds Tech Skills. It's Mai here, a solutions architect from AWS, and I hope you're having a very good Thursday or Friday in some parts of the world. Now, speaking of which, we'd love to hear where you're joining us from. So type in the chat on the right-hand side. Now, if you're new to Twitch, you need to log in, create an account and log in so you can interact with us, and we'd love to hear from you. All about the shows, being interactive with everyone there. So please test out the chat function. And May, what's been going on in your world?
Good. How are you doing, Mai?
Good, thanks, May.
Yeah, well, it has been a really busy month, I have to say, last time we spoke. Yeah, it's a lot going on. We last month we went to Singapore for our internal conference, but now this month just trying to wrap up a few things. I know it's nearly end of the year. It's October, but just starting to plan for the next year and wrapping up for this year. So that's keeping me busy. What about you?
Yeah, it's been super busy, but we had the She Builds Career Day, right? So I know, May, you were actually on the ground there. Love to know what was happening over there.
So for those of you who doesn't know what She Builds Career Day is, we run a career day last week, which is it's a public event and it's run in person and also virtually, mostly around women in tech, like community, focusing on the career in the tech, especially career at AWS. And I met a lot of people in person who are interested to move into the tech career and they're not currently in the tech or then they haven't got a technical background, which is totally fine. And I'm sure you have met a lot of people in your career who come from a different background, like, finance, business, and get into a tech. And it doesn't have to be you don't have to be a technical person to get into a tech. Like, there are a lot of roles. So what we talk about is what is a day in the life of a solutions architect looks like, a day in the life of technical account manager looks like, and some of the open roles that we have. And the interesting thing is we have a talents team on site. So what you can do is when you come to those kind of event, you can have a chat with the talent team to really learn, tips and tricks about what kind of people that Amazon or AWS looking for. What are the things that they should be prepared to come to the interview and be successful? And we shared about this tenant, when we go through the interviews, we also have, the process that we go through. And really, it's around, we're trying to help people get on board and then get into the interview rather than tripping you off. Like, that's not our intention. So our intention is to help people to get it into this kind of a technical role, or at AWS or anywhere that you're going. So it was really really great events. We have got a lot of audience and great conversations last week. And you also joined virtually, right, as a solutions architect roles, and you talk about your experience. What does it look like virtually for you?
Yeah, so virtually, we had a lot of, I guess, participants from the US, and it was a weird time from the US. It was middle of
Yeah,
the night, so it was. I expected to see more people from Asia Pacific, especially Australia.
yeah.
So I was talking about Australian things, and it's like, oh, hold on a second, it might not apply. So um, there was a lot of talk about, okay, so if you wanted to pivot from being, for example, a developer or a sysops person into cloud, there's some perceived sort of barriers, but there shouldn't be, because if you
Mm.
see the job description there, it doesn't. Well, you might say you need X number of experience, but I think with women in general, we tend to think, oh, that's a lot of requirements that I need to fill. I don't tick all the boxes, so I'm kind of scared to even apply. So I think the career days was good in answering those questions and maybe fears, right? Because I don't know the stats exactly, but I think more men think they're more confident than even if they don't tick all the boxes. So
Yeah.
just dispelling those myths to say, hey, it's okay. You've got the experience, just apply. That's how it all starts. And, we can provide that coaching on, uh, how to pivot. I think the pivoting was a theme for me on that
Mhm.
session. So I don't know. What did you think about that, your session?
Absolutely. I agree with that, because there are a few people that I talked to. They were like, "Oh, I haven't got this, like, the bachelor degree in computer science, and solutions architect is a very technical job, and people, like, their job description say this is what they're looking for." And I say, like, look, it's a great way to learn what people think about this kind of a job that they want to go for, and then unpack. Like, you can really actually apply for it, give it a go, and you can pick up things along the way. So I think that was is really I would say eventful, and also to me with a lot of people from different backgrounds, and like they're so passionate about tech, but it's just they are at the stage of deciding, like, okay, like, what do I really want to do with my career, and what's the next step for me. So it's unpack a lot of things during the event.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to a poll because I'd like to get to know the audience a little bit
Yeah.
more. Let me just where
All
are
right,
we?
this is a poll time. So the audience, you have to interact and answer some of the questions.
All right. So the question is: anyone going to any AWS events coming up? So don't put yes or no. Put one or two. So put it in the chat there. If you can't use the chat, you need to log on with sign on with your Twitch account. Two. No, but I'd like to know if there's more.
Wow, that's interesting. I think we need to do a bit more sharing with the upcoming events, or just targeting the audience and making sure that they're aware of these events happening. Right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Cool. Keep the answers coming in. Don't be shy.
There's a lot of twos. A lot of twos. It's good to know. Well, good news is that for those who answered two, there's more events coming up, and they're virtual for now. There's one of our counterparts,
Mhm.
the North America version of She Builds Tech Skills. They're launching next week. So I'd just like to share this particular sign up page. So She Builds Tech Skills North America, they are launching October the 25th from 2 to 3 p.m. PDT, Pacific time, Pacific Daylight Time. Is it daylight savings over there still? Interesting. So, yeah, if you're based, you don't have to be based in the US. If you can attend, anyone can attend globally, but love to know if anyone's based over in the US or elsewhere. Can you tell us where you're from? Because I think we skipped that bit. We talked about it, but
Yeah.
yeah, love to
Would
know where
love
you're
to. Yeah,
from.
definitely. And like She Builds Tech Skills is expanding. We started off in APJ regions, and now we're looking at North America. We have also a similar counterpart in EMEA region as well. So, and the topics are a range of topics, right? So we get the speakers from different background, different experience. So it's a good chance to interact with those speakers, interact with the audience, and learn from them.
Absolutely.
Cool. There are quite a few audience from Seattle area, Atlantic Beach. Amazing. Canada. Awesome. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Someone from Las Vegas. We'll be there shortly
Oh,
with our show streaming from reInvent as well.
exactly.
Chicago. Oh, wow.
Cool. Wow, this is like global. This is like a global audience, but thank you so much for joining. And I guess this week, well, this month, we going to talk about DevOps. But I wanted to ask you, Mai, before we dive into when we say DevOps, what is the one word that you can think of when someone say DevOps to you?
Yeah, DevOps is, I'm not going to give things away, but yeah, a lot of people think about tooling, but there's more than that. And I've been talking to a lot of customers about not just the DevOps tooling, but how does it all fit in with the entire organization, right? And one thing that's come up quite recently is DevOps and security, and how do you integrate security around that? And how do you have a modern process around your compute components like containers and serverless, right? And how do you integrate security into your DevOps pipeline? So that's been a bit of a trend, maybe for me. Maybe I'll live in a bubble where everyone's talking about that. I don't know. What about for you, May?
I guess like like you're absolutely right. DevOps, like I remember early in the career where I have done a lot of things where you deploy into a production system manually, and the fears of making a mistake it's there. Like I still remember those kind of like that kind of day. So having this kind of DevOps, the process being agile, being able to integrate a lot of toolings into it and collaborate with different teams is really important as well. It's not just the tooling. Tooling is there to do the work, but there are people behind involved in it and actually design these tooling. So I think the people and then the process is really important in the DevOps and bringing everyone together. So I think that's what our guest speaker is going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's time for a poll again. We want to go to the audience to find out what you all think about DevOps. So share my screen. So what is DevOps? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Put it in the chat. Have a wild guess. There's definitely no wrong answers.
There's no right or wrong answer. We just, getting the sense of what people think of DevOps, like what comes into their mind. Is it the tools? It doesn't even have to be AWS tools, but the tools that you use, or the developments or like operation people working together. Is it what do you think of DevOps? So yeah.
Interesting. Everyone seems to be going for option number 4. The
Yeah,
developers and SysOps people working together. That's ideal, isn't it? It is
that's
ideal. Have you seen a lot of that happening with your customers or in your own experience?
I can tell my own experience. When I was an engineer or developers, sysops, like we rarely speak each other. We're sitting in the different sections of the room. We probably Slack. We should have communicated more to make this process a lot easier. But it's a very impactful process or the concept that to bring this, because as an engineer, all I'm thinking about is to ship my code into the production as quickly as possible. That's all I'm thinking about. And it's more to it, right? And that's where the operation teams coming in and like, hey, hold on. Like, are we talking about the stable environment? Have you got version control? And a lot more to it. Security, like you mentioned. So I should have done better in my own experience, to be honest.
Yeah, so I'm the SysOps person saying, hey,
Oh,
stop.
okay. Sorry. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and then you have security as well saying to SysOps people, stop doing that as well. So, it's a whole, circle of people saying, no, don't do that. Anyway, fun times. I know the pain, right? We all know the pain from each different roles, perspectives. And I
Yeah,
think, getting to that state of everyone working nicely together, it's a very nice state to get to. And I find it very rare, everyone working
absolutely.
harmoniously together. That's super ideal,
Yeah.
but can be difficult, right? All right, so let's go to the answers. So it seems to be everyone picked number 4 and maybe a bit of 3, but the answer is it's actually a combination
Oh,
of people, process, and technology. And here to explain why will be our next guest. So uh, Eden, Eden Hare. She is a senior DevOps consultant at AWS. So for over 35 years, Eden has provided leadership in various information technology areas like cloud security, training, code development, DevOps, and process engineering leadership to simplify and deliver high quality products. Her background includes working in small, medium, and global companies as well. Eden has 4 university degrees, overachiever. Her certified information security systems professional, certified information systems auditor, and certified information security manager, and 7 AWS certifications. Wow, that's amazing. She's written extensively over the last 30 years, co-authoring 7 books. Wow, I don't even have time to write a blog article these days. And hundreds of book chapters, magazines, and online articles in technical management, education, and information security publications. And she has extensive technology and information security and training experiences, which makes her a key resource that can help companies through all their technical challenges. And she was the original members of the AWS Community Builder Program. Maybe some of the audience might be part of that program already. But if you want to know more, there might be a link in the chat. She's actually currently employed as a senior DevOps consultant team lead at AWS Professional Services. So let us welcome Eden.
My name is Eden Hare. I am a senior DevOps consultant and team lead in AWS Professional Services. I'm here to talk with you today about using DevOps to solve a problem. Specifically, though, I want to talk about understanding a problem and how it is important when we're actually working towards a solution. So today's topics are including just a quick recap of what DevOps is, the DevOps model, and then we're going to dive into understanding the problem and how we need to know that in order to actually use DevOps technologies to generate a solution. So what is DevOps? Well, DevOps is a combination of cultural philosophies, practices, and tools that increase an organization's abilities to deliver applications and services at high velocity. So what does that mean? It means that we are using how the company works, the culture, and practices, the processes that we have been defined to actually deliver some kind of service to a customer. And we want to do it as quickly as possible. So as we have new ideas, new things that we want to add to the service or the application that we want to provide to our customer, that we can get it to them as quickly as possible. So we have dev, the developers who are concerned with actually how we write the application code for that service. Operations, which is concerned with how we actually run the application and keep it operating. And then later we added security because should be everyone's concern about information security and protecting the data that is owned by our organization and the data that's owned by our customers. And all together, we put it together and call it DevSecOps. So the DevOps model has 3 components: culture, practices, and tools. I already briefly mentioned the culture a little bit, but it's how the company does business. Who is in control, who makes decisions, who has responsibility for what and who and when, how people will work together, um, really, how the company operates. Practices define how we will actually do the work. So in order to produce an application, this group will actually write the code, this group will do the testing, this group will actually run the application, etc. So all the processes as to how we will actually do the work. And then of course there's tools. And the tools is what most people think of when they're thinking about DevOps. It's the technology. But we can see that DevOps is actually a lot more than just the tools. So let's talk about understanding a problem. And I've got an example here. My boss came to me earlier today and said, Eden, I need you to make a peanut butter sandwich. Go create me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's like, okay. So I did. I created a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then she came back and said, but I need sandwiches for 10 people. Oh, this is a little slightly different task. This is a little more troublesome, maybe. And then she said, but I need 2 sandwiches that have strawberry jelly, not grape jelly. Okay, so what's going on here? What's the problem that we're trying to solve? We don't really know. We can guess. The problem is that we need to feed 10 people, but we don't know for sure. But we're doing it kind of wrong. We're going to create one thing at a time. That's not exactly the best way to do it, and we really don't know whether the solution, the quote unquote solution, creating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is actually going to work. So let's look at things a different way to see how we can understand the problem that we're trying to solve a little bit better. So the desired result, or the outcome we're looking for, is that the people in the conference room are not hungry. Okay, so why are we concerned about this? Well, because you guessed it, the people are hungry. But what people? Well, the 10 people that are in the conference room. So now we're understanding what the real problem is, right? People are hungry, and we're understanding how big the problem is, 10 people in the conference room. And then why are they hungry? Well, because it's lunchtime and some of them missed breakfast. So now we have a little bit of an understanding of the problem. We have some people who are hungry. There's 10 of them. They're in the conference room and they're hungry because it's lunchtime and a few of them slept in and missed breakfast. Okay, so we have a few more details. But now we understand that there is a problem and we understand what we're trying to do. So simply stated, the problem is we need to feed the 10 people in the conference room. The outcome, what we hope to achieve by solving the problem, is that the people in the conference room are not hungry. And how are we going to do this? We can use DevOps to build our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So here's a pipeline that I have previously built. It's using Code Pipeline in AWS. And our pipeline is taking advantage of some source code that I've already written and put into a code repository. And that code will do several different things. First of all, decide how many pieces of bread we're going to use in our sandwich, how much peanut butter, and how much jelly. And then we're going to create the sandwich and then test whether or not the person is still hungry. So we've already run this pipeline a few times, but let's actually run this while we go look in a little bit more detail as to what is actually happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to start this pipeline. And while it's running, let's look in a little bit more detail as to what's happening. So there are 3 separate tasks or programs. One of them randomly chooses whether the sandwich will have 1 slice of bread or 2 slices of bread. The next one randomly chooses whether there will be a little bit of peanut butter or a lot of peanut butter. And then there's another one that actually determines whether there will be a little bit of jelly or a lot of jelly. The result is a sandwich. And then we actually go and look at the sandwich. Are we still hungry? Oh, my application program doesn't know how to eat the sandwich, so it actually looks at how the sandwich is constructed. 1 piece of bread or 2, a little bit of peanut butter or a lot, a little bit of jelly or a lot. And then using a comparison, it decides whether or not the person eating the sandwich would still be hungry. Okay? So let's actually go see what's happening with the pipeline right now. So our 3 little programs have executed. It's figured out how many slices of bread, how much peanut butter, and how much jelly. And now we're still doing the test to determine whether or not whoever's going to eat this sandwich is still hungry. So if we actually go and click here to see what's happening with the details, we can scroll through the results, the output, and we can turn around and see. All right, so we have chosen one slice of bread, a little bit of peanut butter, and a little bit of jelly. Oh, this doesn't sound like a really good sandwich. And no, sorry, the sandwich didn't do it. I'm still hungry. So the result is that we didn't actually achieve the objective. We didn't actually create a sandwich which resulted in someone not being hungry. From here, we can then start to ask what happened with the solution? How did we fail to address creating the sandwich? Well, we could then turn around and change the process a little bit to say, hey, we need to not use one piece of bread. We're always going to make sandwiches with two pieces of bread, etc. Okay. The really important thing I'm trying to get across here is that you really need to focus on understanding what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's important because if you just dive into the solution, so when my boss came and said to me, please make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I just did it. I didn't ask. I didn't, what's the problem, right? So the result is that I may or may not have solved the problem. I made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but then she said I need 10 of them because the problem wasn't just one person being hungry, it was 10 people being hungry. And if you dive right into a solution, it may or may not be the best solution, the most optimum solution that you can get. By focusing on what's wrong, or by focusing on understanding the problem, you can actually figure out what is wrong. Why is it wrong? What is it that we really want, the outcome that we want it to have? And how urgent, how important is the solution? Meaning, does it have to be really, really fast, or can it take an hour or take a little bit of time? The point is that the more you know about the problem that you're trying to solve and the constraints or the requirements that are applicable to the solution, the greater the chance of implementing the best solution the first time. And that's important to actually achieving the best results for our customers. I hope this was helpful in understanding a little bit more about using the DevOps technologies to actually solve a problem and how important it is to know more about the problem before you actually dive into the solution. It's my pleasure to have been here with you, and I guess it's time for some questions and answers.
Hello, Aiden. How are you?
I am doing amazing. Thank you so much for asking me to be here. Thrilled.
Uh, um, it's amazing to have you on stage, and thank you for being with us today. What an amazing demo! Like, I have to ask, how did you come up with the idea of peanut butter and jelly sandwich analogy?
Was actually someone that I'm working with to solve or to help me with another problem.
Mhm.
Um, she said to me, I'd like you to go and read something for me. And what I want you to do is record talking about how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, I'm not a peanut butter fan at all. So that, of course, made my little talk about making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich a lot more interesting. And it's funny, I can see some of the comments that are in here is like, well, peanut butter and hummus or hummus. And it's like, well, what about people who are allergic to peanut butter? It's like, yeah, all kinds of other requirements. But yeah.
Exactly. Like you mentioned, like we have to better understand the problems and other things that's around, like what if somebody allergic to peanut butter? What if somebody doesn't like peanut butter? I love peanut butter for the fact. um, but I want to ask, we haven't had a guest around DevOps consultant. So I want to know what do you do as a day to day as a DevOps consultant at AWS? What does it look like?
So in professional services, we work very closely with our enterprise customers that are working to solve some particular problem. Maybe it's migrating applications from a data center into the cloud,
Hmm.
solving steps around how do we build this application more efficiently. So there's occasionally a little bit of architecture as it relates to how we will actually coordinate the technology. Typically, though, it's more aligned with understanding the requirements and then figuring out what we actually have to do. What are the commands to translate? I do these 15 things manually in order to make this happen, like your comment May earlier about that fear of pushing to production. Um, and then how do I do that reliably? How do I build in the tests so that
Yeah.
I have confidence in the code that the developers have written, that it will run, that it will pass the tests, that we can deploy it into the infrastructure, test it on the infrastructure before we actually let customers see it. And so that's a large part of what we do.
No, that's really amazing. And yeah, it's the fear of pushing to the production without actually testing or without knowing like what's gonna happen. You're just hoping, like fingers crossed, it works. But yeah, cool. So that's very interesting. So you dive into customer like requirements, actually build the work with the customer team to build the system. And I guess like another question is, I know outside of AWS, you have written a lot of blog posts and then co-authored books. Um, because you have done it for like 35 years, am I right?
I've writing, excuse me, I've been writing professionally since 1992, so 30 years.
Yeah, wow,
Yeah.
that's really amazing. And throughout the whole years or like the whole time, how do you come up with fresh ideas or like a new topic to talk about, such as peanut butter jelly sandwich? Like, how do you come up with those ideas?
It it's funny, what will happen is in the course of my day job or in the course of reading, studying for a certification exam, there'll be some question that pops in my head. So, like, one of my recent articles on Medium talked about how can I actually use some of the available tools to improve validating whether IAM policies in CloudFormation templates are actually doing the right thing,
Hmm.
or we're not introducing security issues. So they usually start with a question like that, and then going to figure out, well, what are all those tools that are available? How would we connect those tools in? Where would we put them in the pipeline? How would we evaluate whether or not there's a problem and we should stop the pipeline? So usually it starts something like that, and then goes from idea to writing to hopefully publishing. Occasionally it happens where you get it all done and say, this is dumb. I mean, it was interesting to do, but nobody's going to be really interested in this, right?
Yeah. No, that's incredible. I don't know how you find time to write all of these and also studying for certifications. That's incredible.
You try to link. It's really helpful if you try to link, doing some writing, you're working on a certification and trying to link the process together so
Yeah.
that you can actually apply it. I think the um, one of the best ways to actually figure out whether you understand something is to try to explain it to somebody else.
I
And
absolutely agree. Yeah.
if you don't have an audience available, then at least make the piece of paper your audience, make your editor the audience, and see if you can explain it in a way that makes sense to you in the end.
Yeah,
That
totally
is
agree.
great advice.
It's like explain it like I'm five, right? It's the ELI five approach. Yeah. Awesome. So I've got a few questions for you, Eden. So what kind of advice would you give women entering a STEM career?
Well, I'm going to go back to one of the comments that you were talking about earlier. Women look at a job and look at the list of qualifications and say, "Oh my gosh, I don't have all these qualifications. I'm not going to apply for the job." The first piece of advice is, if you in any way, shape, or form can come up with an example of something that you've done which illustrates that qualification, whether or not you've got it, apply for the job. What's the worst thing that can happen? You get an interview and you don't get the job opportunity, but at least you got to learn from the interview. You got to practice your interviewing skills a little bit. If you don't apply, then the interview is never going to happen, and there's never a possibility of you getting the job. So that's the first thing. Um, Secondly, would be um, have a voice, have an opinion. You don't have to be right. Uh, when I think about some of the men I work with and some of the women I work with, nobody's afraid to actually air an opinion. Of course, we have a really interesting culture in AWS and Amazon, as you know, right? We want to hear those ideas, as crazy as they may be, because it sparks discussion. It sparks a different perspective, and there is a tremendously different perspective that women bring to a problem. Like some of the comments, right? Well, what about peanut butter or banana? What about this? What about allergies? All these things that sometimes people don't think about.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. In Amazon, we have this, I guess, a saying like, be peculiar, right? The peculiar, the better. And when I first got hired by with AWS, one of the solutions architects said, "Hey, congratulations, you're peculiar. That's why you got hired." I'm like, is that a good thing or bad thing? So I totally agree with that. You need to have diverse perspectives in order to make something a little bit different and that stands out from the market, right? I'm
Yeah.
thinking of a product or a system or a service or what have you, right? In whatever organization you are. So it's very important to have that diverse perspective.
I want to add on to something that you just said, you are your product. And that's the way to approach the whole interview. You are the product. You are selling your product to the person that's on the other side of the table or the people on the other side of the table. If you can get them even a little bit interested in the product, then they will start to ask, how can we use this product in our organization? How can we take advantage of their skill sets and perspective? So don't ever forget that you are the product that you are trying to sell in the interview.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You need that elevator pitch too, just in case you have to pitch yourself. You be prepared to pitch yourself to multiple numbers of people. And I always say it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And that's been a bit of wisdom that's been imparted to me from other people as well. So, do you agree with that?
I think that there's an element of truth to that. I think it comes down to I maybe take a little different perspective and say it comes down to confidence in your product. You have confidence in you, and somebody asks you a question that you're really not sure about, or you really don't know the answer to. If you have confidence in yourself and the rest of rest of everything else you know, it's okay to say you don't know, or it's okay to take the question that you just asked and say that they just asked and say, I don't really know about that particular thing, but I know about this, which is related. I don't know how to make toast, but I do know how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Oh,
Right?
that's an amazing response. Yeah, I agree with that too. Now, do you do any community work in or outside of tech?
So I'm actually kind of involved in a number of different things inside of AWS. Well, obviously doing this, right? I'm actually part right now of a group of individuals that are sponsoring a number of activities around Movember. So, the month of November is well known for prostate and testicular cancer awareness. And uh, there's some fun things that are going on with that. I'm actually leading a mustache photo contest. And it's, we're encouraging not just the men to do it, but, hey, ladies, you can do some funny things too. Get a, fake mustache and color it pink or blue or whatever, right? Um, and then, there's any number of different things that you can do externally.
That's awesome. And I guess, how can the audience reach out to you as well? Like, if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you?
LinkedIn is probably the best. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I try to stay, up to speed on what's going on. You can also find me on Medium, and there's a lot of articles there across a wide range of topics. So either way is the best.
Awesome. And there'll be a link there soon in the chat. But before we go back to many of the audience questions, I will share a poll. So just curious to know, are you part of the DevOps process on a day-to-day basis? So anything around the people, process, and technology of DevOps. Do you deal with DevOps? No, but I'm interested. A lot of twos at the moment. Yeah, type it in the chat. Lots of twos. There's one, two ones. A lot of people are interested. Wow. Yeah, this is pretty cool.
If I can jump in here, it sounds like it's a scary thing, but there's an awful lot of other parts inside of DevOps. You can specialize in the pipeline, you can specialize on the code that actually builds containers, you can specialize on security. There's a lot of different aspects that make up DevOps, and so even though we have a collection of people that I work with that we're all DevOps consultants, each of us have specific skills that we're better at than some of our peers. And so we rely heavily upon each other, a lot of collaboration. And that's a key component of being successful in the DevOps space.
Yeah, totally agree with the collaboration part of things. May, do you want to go through some of the questions that came from the audience?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of questions around. So if you have a questions from Edie, pop it in the chat and we will go through individually. So the first question, but this is more around certification. So there are a lot of questions about, what steps to take into a DevOps around AWS certification. What do you recommend?
So that's a hard one. Really, if you're going to start with an exam that you've never done, you have no really familiarity with the cloud, I'd actually suggest you go do the cloud practitioner one first, because it starts to introduce the language. And the language is so important to the rest of the discussion. So by the time you get to do a developer certification, you've already got some familiarity on what cloud is, what containers are, what's S3, what's EC2, et cetera, right? You at least don't have to start at square one with learning the language. Whenever you come across a lab that walks you through the console, take the time. It's going to be a lot longer. I'm not going to kid you, but take the time to learn how to do it in CloudFormation. And the reason is that the console actually hides a lot of the complexities behind what we do, right? You click on the button, say, create a pipeline. Woof, you have a pipeline. But when you want to do it with CloudFormation, there's a lot more steps. And that's when the learning really kicks in. So by the time you get to the certification exam, when you get asked that really strange question, it's like, I remember seeing that last week in a CloudFormation template that I built, and I know the answer. Hands-on, being able to understand obviously the language, what's CI/CD, what's the difference between continuous deployment, continuous delivery, being able to actually demonstrate that you can do it even without the certification. You can do it without going out, without actually having achieved the certification. That's get the hands-on work, and don't be afraid. It's the cloud. If you make a mistake, right?
Great advice there. Great advice. Get hands-on. I haven't heard of the advice for CloudFormations, but that's a really interesting concept that when you actually, write a CloudFormation template, you get to see a lot of the nitty-gritty behind than actually going the console. So great advice there. Okay, so let's move on to the next questions. This is around mentorship. Anna, who recently joined SheBuild's community group, and she was asking, what is the best way to find a mentor? Or maybe how many mentors do you have in your career? It might be not just one person, right?
There have been many. There have been many mentors. I mean, at various points in stages of your career, you have a specific thing that you realize, this is a little bit of a weakness for me. Standing up in front of people and doing a presentation, it's a little bit of a weakness at one point in time in my life. Being confident enough to get your ideas out there. So you end up having to look for somebody that you see that does that really, really well. And it's just a matter of going and ask them, hey, I've noticed that you have absolutely no problem speaking up in these meetings and challenging other people, about their ideas, or throwing some crazy idea that everybody laughs at. Can you help me develop that confidence? And sometimes it's a case of just getting over the fear of throwing out the idea, and the mentor could turn around and say, hey, Edie, what do you think about this? What do you think about this idea that we're talking about? Just even getting somebody to pay attention to you in the meeting and opening the door for you is a big thing. You ultimately have to decide to walk through it and throw your idea out, but that's a huge, huge part. How do you find a mentor? Well, it really boils down to, who have you come across that emulates the thing that you're struggling with?
Yeah, absolutely. No, like looking out for people, or like look up to the people that you want to be where they are, and then reach out to them, and don't be scared or shy to have an introduction, make an elevator pitch on like where you want to be and how they could help, mentoring them. Absolutely. We have got a lot of questions coming through, so I'm just gonna go
I
through
see
really
that.
quickly. And this question, we might need some help. Maybe Mai could help also. This is around interview process. And Edie, like, what do you think? Creating the theory of a process using AWS for an interview, but not sure if that would really work. If that's, if you think about some technology, but how do you prove that it works? Hmm.
So when I think about our interview process, and there's a lot, first of all, there's a lot of information out on the web about our interview process. It is a little
Yeah.
peculiar. We've spent a lot of time focused on our leadership principles and understanding how you as an individual are going to fit within our culture. How hard will it be for you to um, adapt, if you will? Some might say the more peculiar you are, the better. But that's actually a really integral part of the interview process. So, I do a lot of DevOps interviews, and again, it's come back to the language. Can you not just tell me the definition of, what is X, but can you explain to me how you would use X? How can you explain to me how you have ever used X to solve a particular problem? That's more important than coming in and saying, "Hey, I've got this project that I can show you," because it's going to really derail the interview process
Yeah.
that we follow.
Yeah, totally. For solutions architects, I think you need to understand, like you said, Eden, at a deep level, what you actually did, and it can't be we did something. It has to be, this is my part in this project. And you need to have that individual element of actually taking ownership and, diving deep in that, in the tech as well. Because although, the culture fit is definitely an important part of the interview process, the first couple of stages are, the technical interview.
Yeah.
So, we always drilled into whatever that you did, and you need to be able to answer it at a deep level, and master that area. And you don't have to know everything, because no one knows everything. You just need to have a really niche area that you can really dive into. And in terms of if you can't pay to launch the instances, we do have a free tier as well. So, and there are some, I think it's AWS Educate, that you can start playing around with AWS services for free. And some of the content on Skills Builder, right? So on our
Yes.
AWS training and certification website has a lot of free content. And then, so you can have a look into that and, understand the theory, have a play around with it within the free tier, set up AWS budgets, right? Just to make sure that it doesn't go beyond a certain amount, because, that could sting if you can, if you have a lot of instances running at the same time. So make sure you set up a threshold there, and then just experiment.
You triggered a thought. My When I actually interviewed for my position in AWS, what I did was I sat down with the leadership principles and I worked through, even from the technology perspective. Hey, we're looking for deliver results. what project have I worked on, or where did I actually do something and took advantage of the technology? And what technology did I take advantage of? How did I take advantage of it in order to actually deliver the result that was expected ahead of time, under budget, whatever the case may be? But looking at things from that way really will cause you to step back and say, hey, there's a leadership principle that I'm struggling with an example. And maybe that's something that I want to work on for the next little while to work on that particular leadership principle.
Yeah, the leadership principles are integral.
Integral.
Yes.
One way or another.
Always. All right. So we have got 10 minutes. I'm being a time checker, but because I want to get through as many questions possible. The next question, Edie, what tool do you use the most? And do you have a favorite tool to work with? Interesting question.
What tools do I work with the most? I don't know that there's a specific answer for that. One of the challenges, I think part of the reason why this is a challenge to answer is in the work that we do with our clients, we are going to use whatever tools that they have chosen as an organization. So if they've decided to say, we're going to use GitLab as our source code repository and our continuous integration engine, then that's what we will help them, what we will work in. It's not about, stop using that. You need to use code pipeline and code build, right? Because there are often times where the decision it's much bigger than just the particular team that you're working in.
Yeah.
So my go-to tool, if I have a choice, is CloudFormation. I can, you get good enough at it. I was helping a team member just actually in the last couple of days. He says, I'm struggling with this. And I said, well, number one, if you don't fix this, by the time the code executes in the pipeline, if the developer, the DevOps person, whomever is actually going to use this thing, doesn't put a value in this field, they won't know that there's a problem until the pipeline's half executed. So
absolutely.
do this, and this in your template, and that'll solve the problem. So yeah, CloudFormation is my thing.
Totally relatable, and I can see that. Like now, I know if I have some questions with CloudFormation, I know who to go to.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question. To become a DevOps pro, how much coding experience require?
You need some, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the customers that I've been working with, they've kind of settled on, from a DevOps perspective, on Python or TypeScript or JavaScript, and a lot of shell scripting, right? Because a lot of the commands that you would use, you can build right inside of a shell script. Do you need to have like 10 years of writing Java code? Not going to help you. In terms of the development of the pipeline, it will help you understand how the developers wrote and all the things that are necessary to actually build that application. But you could probably do that with, 6 months or a year of Java, right? You don't have to be the guru in any particular programming language.
Yeah, I think that's true. And then once you learn, or once you know one programming language, the concept is quite similar, right? So it is transferable skill from one language to another. So I think these two questions are quite similar, like in terms of the programming language that you have to use in the DevOps process. So I want to jump on to the next one. This is also interesting. It's about non-AWS technology that you suggest that people or the audience should learn to be more successful in their DevOps journey?
Jenkins.
Oh, I like Jenkins.
Yeah, Jenkins there's a lot of Jenkins out there. Ansible.
Ansible, yeah.
Chef, Puppet, although I think that there's been a change recently around Puppet, but a lot of people are using Jenkins, and a lot around using Ansible and the various configuration management tools. because you don't have to go and redeploy all of your code. Just change the configuration and let the code do something different.
Yeah. Cool. Absolutely. Mai, any suggestions from you, like something that you use with your customers or?
Yeah, so more on the infrastructure as code side of things. I see a lot of customers moving to CDK, Terraform. Yeah, CDK, sorry, that's AWS flavored, but Terraform, yeah, Terraform. A lot of people are deploying blueprints, right? So EKS
Yeah,
and ECS blueprints on Terraform. So lots of Terraform going on in the sort of like
Yes.
more the ops
Terraform.
platform space. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, cool. Um, so this one I'll take it as a last question and then we can wrap up. Okay. Where do we start learning DevOps? Oh, it's such a broad topic, DevOps. So I'm a little scared to dive right in if I'm new to, DevOps concept. It's a little bit overwhelming, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, and to help, well, okay. So if I would actually say, get a book and start to understand the scope of what DevOps means. Start to understand the scope that it covers from a culture perspective, from all of the processes that you not only use in writing your code, et cetera, that fit elsewhere into the organization. If you're not scared of it, the DevOps Handbook is probably the book. If you want to read something which is a little bit more novelish, look at the Phoenix Project, which is a little bit right.
Absolutely.
Takes that look at that fictitious company and how do we solve the challenges that we've had? How do we take the things that are talked about in the DevOps Handbook to actually get ourselves to market and save ourselves in the process, right? So, but it's more fiction oriented. It's a little easier to read.
Yeah.
But the DevOps Handbook is still probably the number one place to go in understanding the scope. They don't dive a lot into the raw technology, but talk immensely about how really big companies have taken advantage of DevOps principles to really reshape parts of their business. And I think you'll be surprised if you read it. Some of those
Yeah.
companies, Target, Etsy, PayPal. I mean, like the list goes on and on and on.
Great
Yeah.
suggestions. I see
Totally.
my laughing. So I know you've read Phoenix Project,
I'm
and then
trying to
a lot
read the
of
Phoenix Project. There's a lot of PTSD with that because I can relate so hard to it that I can't read it anymore. So I need to restart
Yeah, yeah.
it.
If you've lived the pain, it's hard.
yeah, absolutely. All right. So now it is coming up to nearly the end of this session. So Mai, what have you got for the last part of our session?
All right. Thank you, Eden, for joining us. It was
Absolutely,
great
my
having
pleasure.
you. It was great having you. It was awesome. All
Thank you
right.
so much, Eating.
See you next time. Oh, we'll be here. All right. So, what do we got so far? One last thing. So, we talked about Skills Builder. You can scan the QR code here to get to Skills Builder. If you live in Australia, you get 50% discount exam vouchers for any of our AWS certifications. So, scan that QR code here. There's more QR codes here. So, if you wanted to join She Builds Cloud Up, if you haven't already, go and scan those QR codes. And yes, that is it. We have 1 minute to go. One last poll. So let me just share one last poll. What topic would you like to hear more on this show? Enter in the chat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Lots of
A lot of
topics
options.
there.
I mean, this time from the DevOps, we did that was taken from the previous poll, right? That audience told us they want to hear more about DevOps. It has been a popular topic, and hence we brought Eden's and spent her time. An hour of her time with us, so that and then a lot of interesting insight and yeah, conversations. I really enjoyed having that conversation.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this was a really cool topic. I think it got everyone really talking about.
Yeah.
not just DevOps, but about their technical careers and how to pivot to DevOps, right? So
Absolutely. I
yeah.
can see the topic from the audience is trending towards containers and serverless, which is your favorite top in mine, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely containers. Maybe you can talk about serverless more.
All right, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for sticking around for the whole hour, and I hope we will see you next time. Well, the next month and the same time.
Yes, so let's nerd out together and she builds tech skills.
Hope to see you next time.
See
Bye.
you next time.